What is up, guys? Now I'm really excited to react to this video because the title is Minerva, right? Hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right. The villain nobody understood. Now, this character from Walking Dead, her character, you know what? I didn't hate her character as much as a lot of people I think did. I think a lot of people hated her character. I didn't hate her character. I liked her character, even though what she did was like effed up. You know, I still liked her character, you know, the way. But let's get into it though. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video.
Minerva is one of the hardest characters to define in the Walking Dead game. On one hand, she's beloved by a small fraction of the community. On the other, she's either forgotten entirely or dismissed as a lackluster villain.
Forgotten? I don't know about forgotten. I feel like I don't feel like she's a forgettable character. I don't know. That's just me.
In this video, my goal is to uncover why Minerva is seen this way, what purpose she served in the story, and whether she's even worth remembering at all. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Before we can dive into Minerva's purpose, we first need to look back at her story and understand who she truly was before the events of the game. Minerva, the adoptive sister of Tennessee and former partner of Violet, was once known as a kind, creative and musically gifted girl, someone who seemed like a blend of both Lewis and Violet. But as we all know, Marlon eventually struck a deal with the Delta Group, offering Minerva and her sister up as child soldiers in exchange for safety of the rest of the students. A few lies about her death later, and all that remained was the memory of a caring, talented girl who was gone far too soon. In reality though, Minerva was being completely brainwashed by the Delta and by the newly returned Lily. She endured brutal torture and was forced into trauma-inducing battles against neighboring communities. The most tragic example, of course, was when her sister tried to escape with her out of fear or perhaps total indoctrination. Minerva betrayed her, leading directly to her sister's execution. It was likely here that the Minerva of old truly died, meaning Marlon's lie had, in a sense, become reality. The Minerva the kids once knew was gone. What remained was a soldier of the Delta, one who had inherited Lily's talents for manipulation. So what do we actually see in the game? A brutal, calculating soldier who constantly uses manipulation to gain the upper hand. Whatever doubts she may have about the Delta are completely overshadowed by her fear of suffering the same fate as her sister. She's utterly broken, refusing to intervene even when her friends are tortured, such as when Lewis has his tongue cut out. She shows just as little sympathy toward her ex, Violet, and coldly ignores Clementine's pleas. By this point, Minerva is nothing more than a husk of who she once was. Still, I wouldn't go as far as to call her evil. If she no longer cares for her friends, maybe she still cares for her adopted brother, right? In a sense, perhaps. But even with Tennessee in the picture, Minerva continues to fight alongside the Delta, right up to the collapse of their mission. Her loyalty is clear and unwavering. It's only when she's bitten on the cheek and faced with certain death that she finally shows any emotion beyond complete apathy. Of course, this should have been the end of her story. She should have died here. Unfortunately, this is where things get a little dicey. Minerva somehow survives, defying all logic, and reappears as the kids attempt to cross a rickety old bridge.
Bro, what was everyone's reaction when you seen her, bro? I remember seeing her thinking, what the F? I was like, what? How the hell is this girl still alive right now? Hey, I can't lie, the scene where she's walking with the zombies is kind of hardcore, you know, kind of cool, I can't lie.
There, she emotionally manipulates Tennessee into giving up his life to die alongside her. Okay, let's be clear. Minerva, who showed no capacity for empathy until her own death was imminent, emotionally abuses a neurodivergent 12-year-old and coerces him into dying with her. This is the point where all bets are off. I'd comfortably call her an undeniably evil force within the game. Whether she's broken or misunderstood no longer matters. Nothing can excuse a 20-year-old manipulating a child into throwing away his life. The worst part of all this is that Minerva's actions force AJ into an impossible choice: to either kill his best friend or watch Clementine's romantic partner get devoured in front of her. And it doesn't end there. The delay she causes directly leads to Clementine being bitten, and yes, I blame Minerva for that, not Tennessee. And with that, her story concludes. The once gifted girl reduced to an evil, brainwashed manipulator, a miniature Lily, devoured on a bridge after trying to drag her little brother down with her. The easiest option would be to leave it at that, but I do think there's some nuances here. None of this would have happened without Marlon, and Marlon wouldn't have made that choice if not for Lily. Many argue that Minerva stole Lily's spotlight, but I think it's clear she didn't. Minerva was carrying Lily's torch. She inherited nearly all of her traits, passed down from Larry to Lily and finally to Minerva. The same manipulative charm, the same illusion of diplomacy masking outright madness. If anything, the reason you despise Minerva for what she became is because Lily was such a genuinely great villain. Her influence doesn't die with her. Her cruelty carries on through Minerva and nearly costs Clementine her life. It's worth remembering that Lily's whole point was that AJ would eventually get Clementine killed, that love alone can't keep a burden alive, and from her grave, she almost proves herself right, but almost isn't enough. She was completely wrong. In the end, it's AJ's love that saves Clementine. So now that we've established Minerva as a far more important character than many give her credit for, and arguably a major reason why the so-called main villain Lily was so menacing, there are still questions left about Minerva herself. In my opinion, she leaves a lasting mark as the final villain of the series. But why did Telltale choose to end the game with her? Well, let's talk about that. The reason Minerva serves as the final villain, in my opinion, is actually pretty simple, because she cleanly connects back to the first. As I mentioned earlier, Larry was the series' first true villain, and Lily was both shaped and scarred by him, likely enduring emotional abuse in the process. Lily then mirrors those same tactics and even quotes her father while brainwashing Minerva.
You know, my father, Larry, was a military man, and when I was a kid, he had all kinds of rules. The thing that bugged him most was waste.
Through that chain of influence, it makes perfect sense that the last villain would be one who traces directly back to the first. Minerva is also a reflection of Lily, just further along the Apocalypse's timeline. Lily didn't fully break until the world's decay finally caught up to her, but Minerva has likely never known anything but that decay. While she's undeniably Lily's creation, she's also a mirror of what Lily might have been if she'd never been on your so-called team. An enemy from the start. Her story is one about how abuse from a young age can shape a person, and how conformity can sometimes become a means of survival. Her story also ties directly to both AJ and Tennessee. Had Lily succeeded, or Minerva at the bridge?
You know what's crazy? I never really thought of... Yeah, I never really made... I kind of made the connection to Lily, I guess. I don't know, playing the game, I don't know. I never really see them as like similar characters, though. I don't know. You guys let me know. I never really like playing the game. I just looked at her as like a character where she'd been manipulated. Definitely been manipulated. Definitely a sad story, right? Especially when you hear like when she's telling the story about his sister. I mean, my reaction was like, damn. You know, when Lily makes her tell the story, I was like, wow, that is insane. But I never really looked at her and Lily. It's a great, you know, it's a great take. Thinking about it now, though, you can definitely see. There's definitely similarities in, again, yeah, the manipulation. I mean, even at the end with Ten, where she's, let's say, trying to get Ten killed, that is a good example. I think another example is, I mean, I don't know, because she had moments, though, where she saves, what's her friend, Violet, you know, on the boat. I forgot what the scene is, but I think she either saves or helps and lets her go. So she does have her moments where she kind of switches back and forth. So I guess that's why for me, it was like hard to kind of pinpoint a character, definitely. But very interesting. Very interesting that all this probably ties back to freaking Larry. Jesus, Larry, man. The only difference between, I guess, all them is Larry undoubtedly was just an annoying character, bro. Like, I don't, like, he was funny as hell. He was definitely funny. Like, Larry as a character was definitely funny, but undoubtedly that guy was just a villain. Undoubtedly. So it's cool that it all ties back to him in some way. Or it's cool you can make that connection.
Same cycle of trauma would have continued, passed down again and again. So thematically speaking, what's the only way to break a generational chain of abuse? Love. It's impossible for Minerva to have survived, but her role creates the perfect final showdown. It forces AJ to love Clementine so fiercely that he makes a rash, emotional choice, one that ends up saving her life. In doing so, he proves Lily wrong and shatters the Lily chain, preventing it from claiming another innocent life. Just another thought to throw out there, Minerva could also easily represent a version of Clementine who was successfully brainwashed by Carver, or one who never managed to escape the New Frontier. There are plenty of parallels between them, because Clementine endured and overcame so many things that others simply couldn't bear. I understand why some fans felt it all came across as a bit cheap, an impossible to survive bite that's mostly brushed off, Clementine's clear Lee moments, and a handful of other familiar beats. But in the name of fan service, it ultimately works. Everything ties together in a way that feels earned.
You know what? For me, guys, I would say this, right? When Clem first survived, I've had conversations like this with people where I've been like, oh, she shouldn't have survived, and why didn't Lee? In the moment, you kind of like, well, why didn't Lee survive then? Because you love Lee. And you know what it is? I don't know. You could, there's different discussions. I'm sure there's like, maybe Lee had the bite longer than Clem did. I don't know. I'm sure people have made those comparisons. For me personally, I just choose to look. I think season 4 was an amazing season. I loved season 4. And yeah, could you argue maybe Clem shouldn't have survived? Maybe. But you know what? I was just, you know what? I was happy she survived. I was just happy she survived. And I was like, look, maybe you could argue story-wise, but I don't know. Does it affect the story that much? Well, to be fair, we've not gotten a season 5, so we don't really know. But season 4, the ending, all of it, it was amazing. So I think we can ignore that. I think we can ignore it. And Lee as a character as well, Lee's death served as a great setup for Clem and the rest of the story. Like, if Lee survived, would it have been the same story? Would it have been a good story? I don't know. So whereas Clem being alive, I don't know how season 5 will go. I know I've seen some of the books, and I know a lot of people aren't happy with the books. So I don't know where the story is going to go. But right now, at least by the end of season 4, from what we have now, it was all intensive purposes, right? It was a good ending.
Even if it bends logic to get there. I also think viewing Minerva as someone who overshadowed Lily is the wrong way to read this season. And I'll admit, I used to think that too. But once you take a closer look, the writing just doesn't support that narrative. I was never someone who was crazy about Minerva's character, but I do think people are a bit too harsh on her writing. Her story demands a little extra thought and an understanding of the series' long-running character arcs. But when you connect the dots, it becomes clear why the writers chose to tell it this way. In a season built to mirror the first, it makes sense that while Lee had someone to reflect him, there also needed to be someone to mirror the obstacles of the past. Seen through that lens, Minerva is a far stronger villain than the usual brainwashed kid does bad things take. Her arc ties together the beginning, middle, and end of the series. It implicates an entire generation of characters, and ultimately delivers its final devastating blow, allowing the player to break the hidden chains the story had been struggling to resolve all along. This video is supported and made possible by...
Okay, yeah, that is I have to think about that. That's a good video though. I never looked at it like that. I never looked at that too deeply, but I always did enjoy her character. I think it's a good connection to make that she connects the start of the story. I guess. No, I don't know if season 4 really mirrors season 1, but there's definitely a lot of there's the big similarity is obviously Clem caring for AJ. That is the massive one. Where that's the obvious big one. I mean, it's the reason why there's flashbacks. You know, there's definitely an intention with the game with that, because there's so many not so many. There's like a couple of flashbacks with Lee. You can mention Lee quite a bit. You know, if you pick those dialogue choices. So, you know what? It's a fair assessment, and I enjoyed the video. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what you think about Minerva. I liked her character in terms of like the writing, not in terms of like her as a person, but I love the writing, and I love season 4 overall. I think I loved season 4. It's probably my favorite season outside of, in terms of replayability as well. Season 4 is just, yeah, we need a remaster of all the season with season 4 mechanics. But look, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Peace.